augmentation, which you defined before the Government Operations Committee, not as doing the actual IT work, but as doing the work of finding people who can do the work. So why can't the Government of Canada just kind of maintain a database of external resources who have this expertise instead of going to 635 different companies to act as middlemen? Why can't they just keep a registry of those who are capable of doing the work to perform specific tasks?
Right.
Thank you very much for the question. I think I received a similar question recently, and I think that the traditional model, if you permit, is like having a general contractor when you need to find somebody with a specific, an electrician or a certified plumber. So now what is being proposed is that we don't use that skill set that has been very helpful for us in the past to find the resources when we need to bring them in, regardless of whether it's IT or other staff augmentation, and to have a data set where we can type in and say, well, we need 5 IT engineers or 5 computer science graduates. And we're taking that on. We're looking at various elements, and I believe that we actually have a module that is a potential for us to be able to do that. But again, it's going to require a lot of administration now.
Just to clarify the question, though, I mean, I think the idea of having someone who has a general contracting function who oversees the process of finding those external resources necessary. I mean, someone needs to be in charge of the project, but I just don't understand why that general contracting function can't be a public servant. Why there can't be someone inside of government who has that skill set of knowing where these different resources are and being able to consult the appropriate database. And I do want to ask you specifically, how many of these 635 middlemen companies have 2 employees or less?
Thank you very much. I believe that is an outstanding question that we're working on. The list is publicly available, all the companies that are on it, but we're trying to work to provide the breakdown. Some of them are very large companies that are well known. Some of them are very small, as we've indicated.
Okay, so just to clarify, you are in the process of providing to this committee the details of how many employees each of those 635 companies have, and when can we expect that information?
I'm not sure if it's for this committee or OGO, and I know that we're looking at it. I'm just looking over here. Do we have further information?
I don't think we have further information to share right now. Just be careful.
Just to clarify, we would like that information at this committee as well, and if you can provide that, please. Do you agree to do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, you finish your response, though?
No,
please?
that's fine. I just wanted to say also we have to be careful not to paint all suppliers with the same brush. Of these 3 companies, some of them
but they're all doing that staff augmentation work of subcontract.
Your time is up, Mr. Laporte. Would you, if you'd like to finish your answer briefly, because time is elapsed. Go ahead.
Say that we have 3 companies that have been under the radar. We have to be careful because we have legit suppliers that provide truly value added to the Government of Canada. So I would be careful before we have the evidence that basically it's systemic, that we don't paint all these suppliers with the same brush. I think we just have to be mindful.
Thank you very much. Suivant, it's Ms. Shanahan. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you, Chair, and I too thank the witnesses for being here because we've had occasion to expect that we will be questioning these witnesses, and that didn't happen in the past. It was abruptly canceled. So good to see the witnesses here. And just continuing on that line, it's a reminder, I think, to all colleagues that in this committee, we're not here to micromanage. Interesting to hear that my Conservative colleague supports us hiring more qualified public servants, and I hope that would continue to be the case and that they would not be under the fear of being abruptly fired at any future time because somebody thinks that that's a good move to make. Because as we have seen, it has long-term consequences to the professionalism, to the expertise, and to the capacity of the public service to indeed effectively carry out and monitor the work that is being done. And I am glad to see the Deputy Minister here because I want to emphasize the fact that it is with Deputy Ministers that this committee conducts its work. So just in the interest of contrast, I would like to ask what role does the Minister or the Minister's office play in selecting bidders?
Thank you very much for the question. Zero role. So in terms of what the minister does, procurement from a PSPC perspective, fair, open, and transparent, and there is a very clear delineation between what is done in the public service and what is discussed with the minister. The minister is briefed on outcomes of procurement, focus on the fairness and the transparency of various elements, and on things that we're doing to improve in procurement. We are very much interested in procurement modernization. He's been briefed on various elements of that. Having discussions on what we can do for better vendor performance management, for better integrity, how we do price substantiation, what are the risk mitigation controls. Those are appropriate roles for the Minister of Public Works. I mean, there's various elements here, and as I noted earlier, there's been a lot of delegation of responsibilities to ensure there's no political interference. Thank you.
Please continue, because I'm very concerned about that. I think Canadians want to be reassured that there is no political interference with the procurement process, and indeed any investigations that come thereafter, because any manner of harmful effects could arrive. Please continue.
There is a lot of emphasis put on this in terms of the quality of our briefing, ensuring that Minister is aware of things that are happening where a decision has been taken. When there are active procurements, there is a prohibition to meet on various elements. If meetings occur, they are always with a public servant official present. We put a focus on fairness. We have fairness monitoring. So we really take this very seriously, and the ministers have all been very serious and aware and alive to this issue. I would also note, for example, when we were doing vaccine procurement, we all signed additional over and above our regular conflicts of interest. We had both the public sector and the minister, I think the Minnow and the ministers all signed off to ensure that there was due diligence being done, there was controls to separate the political and public sector aspects.
Well, thank you. And on that note, it was recently reported that the current minister was not briefed on ArriveCan as part of the hot issues section of his transition binder. Now, PSPC has had 7 ministers over the last 10 years, so it would seem to me that your department has experience with transition. Not everything can be continued, can be included in the binder, but can you tell us about how those priority issues are triaged and prepared?
Thank you very much for the question. I think that it's reasonable to say that, the binder is to provide an overview of the key issues in front of the department. We at PSPC do more than procurement. We are the Receiver General of Canada. We do the translation for the Government of Canada. We do defense procurement. There are many we are the custodian of real property. So there is a whole slew of things that need to be briefed and provided in terms of legislation acts. And in that first run-up of July, we wanted to focus on what was immediate, as you indicated.
Yes, and indeed, Deputy Minister,
Shanahan,
with the fact that not a single question was raised about the issue by the opposition in question period.
Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. That is your time. You are well over. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, you've been good with the time, Chair.
I have. I think I gave Miss Bradford well over a minute, but that does not mean I extend it to every minister, every minister, and every member. And of course, the government side has many more time slots. You'll be able to return to this. Turning now for beginning our third round, turning now to Ms. Kuzi. You have the floor for, is it Mr. Genuous? Pardon me. Turning to Mr. Genuous, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to ask specifically about Liberal Minister of Procurement, Jean-Yves Duclos. We've just heard some questions about the role of the minister. We're supposed to have a system of ministerial accountability, but you've just said that the minister effectively has no role in actual procurement. Given that his title is Minister of Procurement, I'm just trying to understand, what does Jean-Yves Duclos do all day as Minister of Procurement?
Thank you very much for the question. Just to clarify, I was speaking about active procurement where there's open bids.
Okay, so when it comes to ArriveCan, you have the decision made, you have the ensuing problems and scandals, the policies related to it. Your department advised CBSA that there are problems here. And are we to believe that all throughout this process, not just while the bid is actually open, but all throughout this process, there is no role for the minister or the minister's office?
Thank you very much for the question. I think it might be helpful just to give a little bit of a historical context. So
just you have to be very brief because I have 5 minutes.
I'll be very brief.
I don't,
I'm very respectful in
Okay.
the sense that I try to
Okay.
answer the questions very quickly.
Okay,
In
I'll interrupt in 30
2020,
seconds.
when the first contracts were being let, there was no mention of ArriveCan. So any briefing that was being provided to the minister at that time was all hands on deck. Every department needs certain additional support to keep everything open, including the border. So that would have been that level of briefing. As ArriveCan became more of a bespoke name things, briefing started to come more into that area. In 2022, there was QPNOs. This is a traditional way to brief. You ask about the Minister Duclos. Minister Duclos has been briefed on many different aspects of it. You ask about what is the responsibility of the Minister of PSPC. We have everything from the security to contract integrity. These are areas the minister
Okay.
can
Now
offer.
I'm going to jump in. Thank you, and you'll have a chance to respond again. But since the pandemic started, there have been 4 Liberal ministers of procurement: Anita Anand, Philomena Tassi, Helena Jasek, and now Jean-Yves Duclos. Four ministers in about 4 years. Is it reasonable to assume that all 4 of them have been briefed about either ArriveCan or the ArriveCan project before it had that name? And then is the process of engaging ministers, are they actually providing policy direction? Are they raising concerns about aspects of the process? Because you talked a lot about ministers being briefed about things, but I would expect it's not just a one-way dialogue where you're sort of telling the spokesman for the department what to say if it comes up in the House of Commons, but they're actually providing some kind of direction or raising concern about things that they're hearing. So can I assume all 4 were briefed to some extent at certain points in time? And at what points did they offer responses, raise policy concerns, suggest adjustments in direction, et cetera?
I cannot speak in detail to the first 1 or 2. When I became associate deputy and deputy minister, I have more familiarity with the briefings. They were briefed, engaged on the issues that we're facing now, and what is the plan? Is the procurement ombudsman engaged? Is the AG engaged? These are the kind of discussions that are going on in terms of, is there a substantive issue? How is it being fixed? What are the risk mitigation strategies? What are the considerations?
Okay, so they were briefed, they asked questions. You're not really describing a process in which the minister is coming in and saying, well, there's a problem here, you need to fix this. You're not describing a system in which ministers are providing direction. You're just describing a system in which ministers are briefed and then asking questions. Would you say that ministers were actively providing corrective direction on policy issues throughout the process, or were ministers being briefed and asking questions about what you were doing as a department?
Thank you very much for the question. It's an interesting question that you asked, because the financial delegations and the accountabilities rest with the CBSA. So when we're briefing the Minister of PSPC, we're providing some procurement observations, but on the spend, on the record keeping, on the controls, on whether
ma'am, you understand my point, though. You're providing information to a person whose title is the Minister of Procurement, and we have a system in which Canadians expect that minister to take responsibility for what happens in their department. But the way this is being framed, including by Liberal
Brief
members,
question, Mr.
is that the
Junius.
minister is just sort of a passive passenger receiving briefings like students at a seminar, listening to what they're being told by the experts and
Thank you.
asking
I
interesting
like-
questions along the way.
Thank you. I like that.
Isn't that a problem?
Mr. Junius, thank you. A brief response, please.
I would say Minister Duclos has taken an active role. Minister Duclos has been briefed by the Auditor General. We're looking at the whole issue and making sure that we have the direction set to move forward.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Ms. Khalid. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.